I want to hear cannons. Downfield, pull up, ball to the 5, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans does it again. Fire the cannons, Bucs.
It's first and goal. That's picked up. That's picked off. And who else? Rondé Barber. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may ride to the Super Bowl with that one.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Those up with the head. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl. And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
All right, welcome back to Buc What Ya Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Buc What Ya Heard. And, of course, you follow me, I'll follow you back. And tonight, I am in an undisclosed location away from my computer. So bear with us. This is the adventures of going live. And I'm excited. I have some royalty, some Bucs royalty on here with the Cannon Fire podcast. Evan Wanish and Rhett Matthew. How you guys doing tonight?
Good, man. Excited to be back on. Been a long time. We were talking before.
It has been.
You know, Gene, we had you on our show a couple of months ago. We'll have you on plenty throughout the regular season, but I think it's been at least a full year since the three of us have done a show together.
Yeah, it has. It has. So what do you got going on now?
You know,
I'll start with you, Rhett.
Yeah, gearing up for the season, man. Getting ready to dive back into our full-time coverage, you know, doing upwards of 3 shows a week, maybe more depending on what the week brings. But, you know, wrapping up the preseason of coverage, just getting back into the groove of it. Outside of the show, personally, I've been moving. I just moved my house this week. So I'm set up in the middle of my kitchen right now, not in my normal setup with all of my Bucs carb in the background. But it's a work in progress. We'll get it done.
Yeah, it's going to happen, man. All right. And Evan, how have you been, man?
Yeah, I've been good. Obviously, just like Rhett said, you know, on the podcast, we're chugging away at it. And just like he said about getting back into that groove, right? You know, getting back into the doing shows weekly because, you know, basically, I mean, there's a dead period there in the football calendar, right? From May to July, basically, you're struggling to find stuff to talk about. So yeah, we're getting back into that groove, and yeah, we got a lot of fun stuff on the channel. As for me personally, you know, I was still writing for Bucs Nation, bucsnation.com, so you can go check out all my written work there. And yeah, really excited for the upcoming season for sure.
Man, this is going to be an exciting season. And fellas, for me, and I've mentioned this before, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but you know, just talking to you guys, the culture of the team right now, where the ownership is, where the front office is, where the coaching staff is, where the players are, I have not seen, it's been a long time. I don't really know that I've ever seen a culture quite like what we're seeing now. Tom Brady, that was its own entity. Brad Johnson it was more in the Super Bowl era. It was more the defense was the culture. And, you know, everybody kind of thrived off of that. But this right here, it's organic. It's all, you know, the majority draft picks, a few free agents sprinkled in there. But what you have right now is a team, it looks like they want to all play for each other, whether it's on the offensive side of the ball or defensive side of the ball. And kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I think culture is important. Culture is one of the most important things in football, and I also think it's one of the toughest things to build in football. You know, you can have a lot of talent on your football team. You know, that you can sign the free agents and pick high in the draft and pick the blue chip prospects and all that stuff. But as we've seen, you know, basically in most of the 2010s, like if your culture is bad, it's not really going to matter. There were a lot of talented Buccaneer teams in those 2010s, right? We talk about a lot of the excitement surrounding the 2017, you know, team after they add Deshaun Jackson, they add Chris Baker, they draft O.J. Howard, a lot of talent on the team, but the culture wasn't there, right? That was something that was lacking. And really, again, I think it's so tough to build because, again, you can't just acquire talent and expect for that talent to just come in and create their own culture. It takes a special kind of leader, and it's a collective group. It's a thing that needs to be built over time. And in the NFL nowadays, just there's not a lot of patience going on. There's not a lot of patience
Right.
with front offices. There's not a lot of patience with coaching staffs. You're firing coaches. You're hiring guys. You're getting rid of this guy, getting rid of that guy. So that's why I think culture is really tough. And, what the Buccaneers have been able to build, starting with Bruce Arians, pretty much. The hiring of Bruce Arians back in 2019. That was really the start of it, right? But there was a lot of work to do because the culture at that point was basically non-existent. So there was a lot of work to do, and that started building up. And obviously adding Tom Brady certainly helps. And he comes from one of the best cultures in sports in New England. And then you keep adding and adding and adding, and now you're on a streak of playoff runs, and that's where the culture is going to come into, where that's the expectation now. And I think it's important to maintain, because once you lose it, it's tough to get it back, and sometimes, as we've seen, it can take a while to get back.
Yeah, and I thought
100. Go ahead, Rhett. Sorry.
You brought up the ownership, talking about the Glazers, and this was in the news last week. It wasn't huge news, kind of flew under the radar for a lot of people, but you talk about the Glazers and how invested they are in this franchise. Literally reportedly turned down what would have been record transaction deal to buy the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It would have been the same management group led by Josh Harris that paid for the Washington Commanders last year. The details on the deal, if it were accepted, it would have set a record for a transaction of an NFL team and a global record for a control sale of a sports team. We know how much the Glazers like money. That is a lot of money. That would have been a historic deal in the history of NFL teams. They turned it down. They are here for the long haul. I think the Glazers have been around long enough to see what this thing has turned into. It felt like for a decade and a half, we were begging for some kind of consistent culture. I think at the very least, you were just begging for guys to hold themselves accountable. Like, that's where it felt like it start for the longest amount of time, because you had these young, talented players, but you had a lot of immature guys who just could not control themselves. A lot of the times it would be a bad combination with, a bad coaching staff, a young, inexperienced coaching staff, God forbid, a Greg Schiano kind of situation where you lose the locker room and you lose a lot of these young guys. And then on top of that, building the culture that they have already had. Hats off to Jason Licht. I don't know if you've seen this going around as well, but 53-man rosters were released this week. The Buccaneers got theirs done by Monday, a whole day before the deadline on Tuesday. 44 of the 53 Tampa Bay Buccaneers players on their roster were either drafted by the team or began their career as an undrafted free agent with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the only players from outside the organization this season are Baker Mayfield, Ben Bredeson, Justin Skull, Justin Skull, a guy who's been around a couple of seasons now as well, Brandon Walton, Greg Gaines, Ernest Brown, Bryce Hall, Tavier Thomas, and Chase McLaughlin, who just had one of the best kicking seasons in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history. So, it's been a work in progress. It's taken every bit of the 10-year tenure that Jason Licht has had in Tampa Bay, but built something respectable. And I think at this point, even though it's a playoff win last year, you lose to a really good Lions team. I think a lot of teams and franchises around the NFL can look at what the Bucs have built and commend them, because it took a very long time.
You know what? Historically, you can go back to John Gruden. I would even say John Gruden. And you look at the culture of this team, you look at the identity of this team, it floundered. I mean, you bring in Raheem Morris, you get rid of some of your old school talent, your Mike Allstott, you get rid of Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp, and you try to rebuild something to where it's competitive, and you just don't have it. And then that's why I can say that I appreciate, where Tampa is right now. I 100% appreciate where they are, what they've done, how they've built all this, how they've built this organization back up. And, we can thank Tom Brady for it, because I think that's where it kind of started. But when you have your special teams, your offense, your defense, everybody working together as a group, and they're playing for each other, coaching staff, is everybody. It's incredible to see where we are right now. And I'm just excited for it because we haven't had this. And I challenge anybody to prove, hey, where is the Bucs had this, where guys are coming in, and people are wanting to come back. Mike Evans wanted to come back. Chris Godwin, I'm sure that we will work out a deal with him, but people are happy to come back. Antoine Winfield Jr., guys that could have gone elsewhere and loaded the Brinks truck up and backed it up to the facility, got what they wanted, but they stayed in Tampa. That speaks volumes about this front office and this coaching staff.
Yeah, it's the culture that the front office has built, but it's the culture that the players have built. We talked with Rock Riley a couple of weeks ago about the same thing. And, when players look around and they see that other guys are getting paid for putting the work in, Tristan Wirfs, Antoine Winfield Jr., I know Baker Mayfield came from an outside situation, but he played well enough to get the job done. Chase McLaughlin went out there, had a historic season. The Bucs paid him as such. So I think the players in the front office are kind of bucking that assumption that a lot of people had, especially before Tom Brady. Guys don't want to go play in Tampa. There's nothing desirable about playing in Tampa.
Right.
You're not going to get a good group of guys playing in Tampa. And yeah, Tom Brady absolutely helped that. But Bruce Arians from day one just came in with a no-nonsense professional demeanor that I think has trickled down to 100%. The rest of the and Todd Bowles being a part of that coaching tree. You see it in effect with him now. I think the Bucs handle themselves professionally, calm, cool, collected professionally. I guess would be the closest thing I can think of to call it for right now. But it's definitely a far cry from where things were, from what we were just talking about.
And this is a pro Jason Licht show. I can go back to 2016, 2017. People stopped watching my show because I wouldn't criticize Jason Licht. I felt like Jason Licht hadn't developed a body of work to be critical of. You need time. You could plant something in the dirt, but it needs time to grow, and we can see what we've got. We saw what you had with Mark Dominic. Mark Dominic was given an opportunity to build, and it just didn't flourish anything. So when you look at Jason Licht, I felt like Jason Licht deserved the same opportunity as what Mark Dominic got. And unfortunately, it didn't work out for Dominic, but what Jason Licht was able to accomplish through hitting and missing in the draft and bringing new guys in and continuously building that foundation to what we have right now.
He definitely deserves a lot of credit, and that the stat that Rhett said is pretty insane. 44 of 53 is quite impressive for a front office, and and that's undrafted guys. And also you only have one first round pick per year, so that also means that not only is that, it's the late round guys that are also making the ball club, right? It's those day 3 guys that are making the team. It's the undrafted free agents that are making the team. The Buccaneers have a couple of undrafted free agents that have made the team this year. So, it speaks to the like you said, the body of work that Jason Licht has fully put together. And obviously, sure, signing Tom Brady helps. And a lot of people want to discredit him for that. Well, he won a Super Bowl with Brady, and I always respond to that as well. Okay, he won a Super Bowl with Brady because he built a team that was attractive enough for Brady to want to go to. So in the first place, so he built that team, and it was attractive enough for a guy who wasn't in the business of not winning a Super Bowl, right? He didn't want to go anywhere and just say, let me just ride out the rest of the career. He wanted to go win somewhere, and then he chose Tampa, which again, that's kudos to Jason Licht because of what Jason Licht had built here.
Yeah, that's the part of the story that people always love to gloss over. They talk about the 2020 defense, rightfully so. That defense deserves credit, but it was put together by Jason Licht. They talk about Tom Brady coming in and making the Bucs a winner, and while part of that may have been true, the roster was here. The blueprint was here. Yeah. Bruce Arians came in with a good idea, good mentality of what he wanted, and Jason Licht had been putting this team together by 6 years, going on 7 at that point. So, very good point, Evan and Gene.
And let's be honest here. If, you're going up against Patrick Mahomes, and we've seen, I use that word body of work. We've seen what Patrick Mahomes has done throughout his tenure as a professional quarterback. And the one hiccup he had was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. And again, that speaks volumes about your general manager and your at the time defensive coordinator and what they were able to accomplish. So again, kudos to Jason Licht going in and getting some of these players and building something that, was incredible at that time. I mean, there were calls for Derwin James. And again, I'm going to say this. I'm not saying I told you so. A lot of people were like, oh, we got to get Derwin James here. But Jason Licht saw through all that, and he was like, you know what? We need to build in the trenches. And what did they do? They went out and they built in the trenches, and that's what they were able to accomplish, a complete defense that was able to, shut down the Kansas City Chiefs and, win that Super Bowl in 2020. So that can't be denied.
Yeah. One more thing, too, before we ultimately move on. I know this is kind of a big Jason Licht glaze fest here, but I think it all volumes to the character of players that the Bucs have kept around. Like Derek Brooks was a franchise player, right? He was the epitome. He was Mr. Buccaneer, if you will. He was the do-it-all guy. He was the best in the league. He kind of set the standard at the linebacker position while he was in the NFL, and the Bucs kept him around. They paid him as a franchise player and such. You didn't get another guy like that until you get Lavonte David in 2012, and then obviously Mike Evans in 2014. But now a full decade later, both of these guys are considered the upper crust in their position group. I am glad that Mike Evans is finally getting the hype that he deserves. A lot of people say he's a future Hall of Famer. There are more people now saying Mike Evans is a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL than there were maybe ever. I think the only person who was doing that was myself back in 2017 when me and Evan would argue about Mike Evans being a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. Maybe I was a little biased back then, but I was 100% ahead of the curve. I think these guys choosing to stay in Tampa Bay and speaking so highly of Jason Licht, speaking highly of the organization, when they clearly had options, Mike Evans could have maybe had a better chance at a Super Bowl if he went to go play with Pat Mahomes. Or I don't want to say he went to go play in Houston with CJ Stroud, but it would make sense for him to do that, right? Homecoming quarterback. A lot of people excited about what they're building over there. No, he chose to potentially take a little bit less money and stay in Tampa Bay. He wants to play in Tampa. He likes the culture, likes the guys he plays with, likes his quarterback. Lavonte David.
Cuban sandwiches. You can't go wrong.
Lavonte David, best linebacker of the 2010s era. I know there's Luke Kuechly. I know there's Bobby Wagner. There always will be. But the fact that Lavonte David has the longevity to surpass both of those guys and still is playing like a top 3 linebacker in the NFL, he is an ageless wonder. And we're very, very lucky to have guys like that in Tampa Bay, because the Bucs could have paid out a giant wide receiver contract to some drama queen crybaby, and they didn't. They got Mike Evans.
You guys are spot on, and I love this. I mean, this just kind of validates what I've been thinking all along. Just when you look at what Lavonte David was able to do, how he's able to take care of his body, how he's able to, avoid the serious injuries, how he's able to keep his numbers. I think his numbers were better than Luke Kuechly's numbers. And I could be wrong. You guys correct me if I'm wrong here. But statistically,
especially the year that Kuechly won Defensive Player of the Year. I would argue that Lavonte David had better stats that one season in particular, for sure. I'll see if I can pull those up and compare them.
Yeah, absolutely. But, just kind of going back to what I was saying, Lavonte David, he's a football player. He's a fan of the game. And I like the direction that the Bucs have gone. I mean, I don't know if you guys can look at this team. Everybody wants to play football. Everybody wants to go out there and improve their craft. There was that one player that we got rid of that decided he wanted to go on Instagram and unfollow the Bucs, and he wanted to go to the NFC East and play with them. We've gotten rid of that, and I feel like that's addition by subtraction. I hope I'm proven right by this, but I feel like players that genuinely want to be here and play, and they want to go out and do their job, and they're not trying to prove a point, but they want to go out and win another Super Bowl, that's what's going to get you closer to winning a Super Bowl than having a player who is inconsistent, but they make good plays that make good highlights for your 4-letter networks.
And that's another thing about the culture, right? That's another thing that's important about the culture is you don't you hear a lot of the stories about, back in the 2010s and stuff about guys like Deshaun Jackson, and while he's a talented player, There were some things in that locker room that maybe weren't the best for a culture, right? And there's a few other players, and just like you're right. I mean, sometimes it's addition by subtraction. Sometimes just getting that guy out could make your whole locker room better, just can make everything just so much easier for you. Because look, I mean, when things aren't going well, I think culture is basically when things aren't going well, do you have enough to pull yourself back in, or are you going to let this spiral out of control? The Buccaneers last season could have let things completely spiral out of control. After that Houston game where the Bucs go up with 40 seconds left and CJ Stroud leads a touchdown drive to beat them, they were down in the dumps after that game. They could have very easily have rolled over, ended up with a top 10 pick, possibly a new head coach, probably definitely a new quarterback. They could have very easily had just packed it up and said, look, this ain't going to be it. But they didn't. They played some of their best ball down the stretch going into Green Bay, playing Jacksonville on Christmas Eve. They did a really nice job. So instead of rolling over and lying down, basically, they said, responding to that adversity. And I think that's another sign that the culture is much different.
Yeah, and when you're talking about football at that time of year, I think it was October or November, the Bucs had lost 5 of their last 6. By that time in the season, you're not talking about those teams winning playoff games down the road. You're not talking about a team that has found a way to lose their last 5 out of 6 games, potentially turning things around, winning the division. I know it was, only 9 wins, but it was still a positive record. It was a division win, and they rallied. Absolutely. Just like you said, Evan, they could have let things spiral very, very, very badly after that Houston game, and they didn't. Really quick, let me get my sound effects all queued up here.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I love it.
I thought I had a dinger on here, but I don't.
Well, I have to ask you guys, kind of going into the 2024 season, and Evan, I'm going to start with you. How would you grade this offseason? I'm talking about free agency, draft picks, undrafted free agents, and just the pickups they've made to position themselves to start off the regular season. On a scale from A to F, how would you grade what the front office has done? And this would include, have they addressed issues? Have they addressed depth? And, are they in a position to where they can improve from where they ended last year?
As for the offseason, I mean, I would probably go with an A-. The only reason it's not an A or an A+ is sort of that Randy Gregory thing. I think is sort of a little bit of a downgrade for them, especially, they thought they were going to be adding a veteran presence, which I felt they needed in the outside linebacker room. I still think they probably could use something if something came up, but and unfortunately, it just didn't work out for whatever reason. That just didn't work. But I mean, re-signing the guys that you had to re-sign, Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield, Lavonte David, Antoine Winfield Jr. I mean, these are the guys that you couldn't really go without. Not only did you re-sign all your pending free agents, but then you also lock up Tristan Wirfs to a long-term extension, so you don't have to worry about that for at all. So I think that's important. You sign Chase McLaughlin after you've been looking for a consistent kicker. In free agency, you don't go out, you don't make a splash. You didn't really have the money to make a splash, but as we've seen, you don't have to, right? To win a Super Bowl, you don't have to go out and sign 2 of the top 10 free agents, because we've seen Tampa do that, and that hasn't worked. Actually, the last time they really made a big splash in free agency and won free agency and were signing all these big deals, that was a 2014 season. They went 2-14 that season. So, that's not a direct correlation, but it goes to show you that sort of strategy doesn't always work. So they signed Jordan Whitehead. Obviously, he's somebody they've been trying to replace ever since they let him walk. So why not replace him? Just sign him right back. So hopefully he can fit in right seamlessly right back in. Then they focus on depth, which I did like. It is unfortunate they got like Sua Opeta, who I think they were hoping for some offensive line depth. He gets hurt. But they're taking some gambles on some guys with KJ Britt and Zion McCollum there as starters now. You look to the draft. I mean, Graham Barton, being there, which I didn't expect Barton to be there at 26. I was a little surprised that he wasn't going in the late teens or early 20s. He falls to the Buccaneers there, and they get their center, who they hope can be their center for a very long time. I think it's hard to not give now. I mean, offseason, I can give the offseason an A- all I want. If it doesn't result in wins on the football field, it's not going to matter as much. So, but to me, it's hard not to say that they did a pretty darn good job this offseason.
100%. Rhett, your thoughts?
Before I dive into this, I had my sound effects queued up. I just want to put a bow on the 2013 Luke Kuechly stuff that I threw out there earlier. I have got the statistics for you. We got to put it to bed, Gene. I'm sorry.
We have to do this.
But we are paying respect to a Buccaneer legend here. So 2013, Luke Kuechly, linebacker of the Panthers, wins Defensive Player of the Year. I've got my sound effects queued up here. I am going to play the audience applause just because it's the best thing I got. I'm going to play that after every category that person had the better number in. Does that make sense? So I'm going to read.
Hey, I'm with it.
I'm going to read Luke Kuechly's stats. And if he had more tackles, then after I read that, I'm going to play the audience applause. All right, here we go. 2013 Luke Kuechly. He had 156 tackles, 93 solo tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, no forced fumbles, no fumble recoveries, 4 interceptions, 7 passes deflected, and 0 safeties. Pretty impressive year from the linebacker position. Absolutely. Lavonte David in 2013, 145 tackles, 107 solo tackles, 21 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, 13 quarterback hits, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, 5 interceptions, 10 passes deflected, and 1 safety from the linebacker position for one Lavonte David. And the only reason, Gene and Evan, he does not win Defensive Player of the Year that season is why?
Because the Buccaneers were a horrible football team.
Because he played.
I think it was the run. I think it was the run that the Carolina Panthers had at that time. They had more exposure.
Yeah, they absolutely did. You got all the excitement of their team at that time. They were winning football games. They were winning the NFC South. If not winning it, they were competing for it at the very least. They had a very talented.
I believe that at that time, Gerald McCoy peaked. I think that was the best season statistically that Joe McCoy ever had as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer was 2013.
Yeah, and my entire point bringing that up was just to kind of emphasize how it took Lavonte David over a decade of playing some of the best linebacker football in the NFL to get the respect that he deserves. I don't think very many people were talking about that 2013 season in the grand scheme of his career. And that's why for the longest time, when you were talking to people before the Super Bowl about what Lavonte David could be, if he could be a Hall of Famer, stuff like that is what would have kept him out of the Hall of Fame. But
keep in mind that sacks are sexy to NFL casuals.
Sure.
Sacks are the sexiest thing in the world. But when you look at what Lavonte David, the body of work that he put together in 2013, I would definitely put it up against what Gerald McCoy did. I would put it up against what Luke Kuechly did. And I just felt like it was overshadowed because of the word sacks and the fact that Luke Kuechly got a little bit exposure as the Carolina Panthers were on that run.
You know, and I completely apologize for derailing the show here. I just wanted to make sure.
No. That's the beauty. That is the beauty of Buc What You Heard. We are here to talk about our Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It doesn't matter. We'll get back on the rails again.
I'll ruin any show to spit Lavonte David.
Exactly.
54 deserves more respect.
Hey, you know what? I believe that is my next creamsicle jersey will be Lavonte David. I'm actually going to buy one. I mean, I think I'm overcoming my trauma of the creamsicle jerseys and all the losses and finding tickets on my parents' windshield at Winn-Dixie when we're going shopping. And those are true stories where Bucs fans did not want to go to the game, so they would put tickets at Winn-Dixie or whatever store we were at. They would put tickets on our windshield wiper blades, and we would go to the games. But eventually we were moving on up, and we got season tickets in the mid 80s, and we kind of worked our way forward. So to where we are now. So I'm excited to be where we are now, to be honest. Great time to be a Bucs fan.
We've come a long way. It is very exciting. Let me answer your question. I've been incredibly long-winded here. I do apologize again.
Oh, dude, this is a safe place. I'm glad to have you guys on. Let's chop it up.
talking about the offseason, free agency, and the draft for Tampa Bay, I'm going to go with Evan here and say that it's hard to not give Jason Licht at least an A-, just because of the acquisition of all those primetime players we spent the first 20 minutes of the show, gawking over. Antoine Winfield back in Tampa Bay, locking up your long-term answer at left tackle and Tristan Wirfs, a thing that we needed for so long. These franchise guys in these positions of need, have shown that they can go above and beyond. And we talked about some of the other guys that ended up getting re-signed. Chase McLaughlin back, Baker Mayfield back. He gets the big deal. Thank God they got Mike Evans back. Now, there are a couple of things I think are going to be highly debated by the end of the season, and that ultimately depends on how they turn out. One of the biggest transactions I'm looking at is during the draft, Bucs sent Carlton Davis, a 24 and a 25 sixth-round pick to Detroit, and they get a 2024 third-round pick, who I believe at 92nd overall ended up being Bucky Irving.
Jalen McMillan,
excuse me. Regardless if it was Bucky Irving or Jalen McMillan, I think at the end of the year, if you have a secondary with Jamel Dean, who cannot stay healthy, and hopefully not a rotation of different faces, but let's just say a lack of consistency in the secondary by the end of the year. If that's what you're dealing with and you have a historically bad run game, this is going to be one of those deals I think people circle for a long time, because say what you want about Carlton Davis, and there's a couple of other depth areas on this team I'm sure we can talk about before the show is over, but as much as I like our playmakers in the secondary, I think we've got more back there than we've had in a very long time. I am potentially nervous on what that secondary looks like if Jamel Dean goes down and you march into, I don't know what high-powered offenses they play off the top of my head right now, but if you march into a game where you need a secondary and Zion McCollum is your CB1, I like Zion McCollum and the strides that he's made, but I don't know how good they're going to look. And again, as soon as that secondary starts getting torn up, people are going to say, man, I wish we had Carlton Davis on this team.
I'm going to say this, and just I'm going to jump in. I'm glad you brought this up. The best ability is availability, and you can't dispute that. There have been times where Carlton Davis was needed, but because of a soft tissue injury or whatever, a nick up that he had, he wasn't on the field. This is a point where I don't think the Bucs could afford Carlton Davis, and they had to ship him off to wherever they did. I feel like if you're front four, and then again, you're right, but I'm kind of pushing this forward to the defensive line. If you're getting home with four, you're getting pressure on the quarterback, you're doing what you're needing to do, you're providing relief for your secondary and your linebacker core.
Yeah, it's going to help so much.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the key right there to the secondary success is if that front four, even if you have to drop five, bring five in, if they can get home with that, they're going to help the secondary out so much more, putting pressure on the quarterback, making the quarterback uncomfortable. And to me, that's the key right there. I'm like you. I'm not 100% sold on the secondary. And what we saw in preseason, the people that they're bringing in that could potentially be on the field, if there's an injury, I do have concern. However, I will say this. If your front four is doing what they're supposed to do, you're forcing your quarterback to get that ball out quicker. I really believe that there's an opportunity for the Bucs secondary to be successful this year going into the playoffs. So again, I see what you're saying. I think it all depends on what your front four does.
I'm really glad you brought up the front four, because I have been itching to talk about this pass rush, and I'm kind of surprised at how well these two topics go together. But when I look at the defensive side of the ball, I am a little concerned about that corner depth. 100% concerned about the outside linebacker depth. A couple of guys, and you hear from within the organization that the Bucs are kind of happy with where they are at that outside linebacker room. I don't know if they like it. I think this is maybe coach speak, but they're looking forward to trying to put some pressure on a lot of this young talent, this unproven talent. And there's a lot of guys in this outside linebacker room who are proven talent, and they've proven that I don't think they're going to do anything to break the mold inside this outside linebacker room. So I am a little bit concerned with their ability to get after the quarterback. We know Todd Bowles is going to be creative. He's going to throw all kinds of defensive fronts. I think we'll probably see Will Golston line up at the linebacker spot next to Lavonte David at some point. That's just what he does, right? He's put Vita Vea back there in coverage before. So we're going to get creativity, and I think they will get after the quarterback. But that consistency, the ability to do it well with just 4 down linemen and create enough disruptions to where these dogs in the secondary can make plays. You got a lot of playmakers back there in the secondary, but they certainly cannot do it by themselves. And I think when I look at the defense, the biggest concern that I have is without a doubt this pass rush. I think a lot of people are being, I don't want to sound dramatic, but I think a lot more people are being more nonchalant about this pass rush than they should. Shaq Barrett said today he potentially wants to unretire and come back to Tampa Bay. I know Shaq Barrett's not the same guy he was in 2019, but I mean, screw it, Gene. We need him. Bring him back.
As far as veterans go, I would love to have him back. I think I was probably the most excited person when Shaq Barrett came to Tampa from Denver. I felt like he was underutilized in Denver, and he kind of proved himself.
You want to put a Band-Aid on the Randy Gregory situation? You bring back Shaq Barrett, and everybody's just going to forget about it because you're probably going to get
you check up from the neck up. I really believe that the Bucs were sold a false bill of goods, and again, I don't want to sound like a homer, but Randy Gregory, the consummate professional, he's been in the league for however long. You're taking him at his word that he's going to come in here and he's going to produce. We never saw that. And a lot of fans were blindsided by the lawsuit between Gregory and the Denver Broncos that they were unaware of. And again, I just feel like, Randy Gregory, he should have been forthright about all of this. And you can take somebody at their word, which I'm sure that's what the front office did. And when Randy Gregory said, "Oh yeah, I'll be here," I'm signing with the Bucs. I'm going to help them do whatever they need to do. And then here we are, and it's the rubber hits the road. It's time for you to come in here and do what you need to do. Nothing, crickets. So I understand that people are frustrated with the front office, but at the end of the day, you kind of have to trust people in order to get them in and see what they've got. And we just didn't get that. I really felt like it was all hype because I've never been a huge Randy Gregory fan, even going back to his time in Dallas. I thought he was okay. Felt like he was inconsistent. But when they said, "Oh, we got Randy Gregory," I was kind of indifferent. And I felt like, okay, well, let's see what he can do with this defense. And the fact that he never played it down, he never affected the defense negative or positive, is just like, okay, yeah, we heard his name. The name was thrown around, but we never really saw him come out and make a positive play or a negative play. So you really don't know what you had or what you could have had at that time. So to me, Randy Gregory, whether he leaves or stays, whatever. The big deal. No big deal. It's just something you kind of have to move on from.
Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Every time I heard his name, it was just people asking where he had been. Do you know what this guy's up to lately? Because, like you said, it wasn't even a phone call or a, hey, I'm calling in sick today. It was just no call, no show.
Yeah, definitely.
I share the concerns of the pass rush. I mean, and I do agree that I'm not saying that, people are completely ignoring it, but it does seem like they are being a little bit, maybe, I guess, putting too much stock in guys like Yaya Diaby taking another step forward, which, look at me, if he has 7.5, 8 sacks again, just like he did last year, that's still going to be considered a good year. And I just think people are kind of expecting maybe too big of a jump from a guy who was still a 3rd-round pick. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who hasn't shown enough consistency in the NFL. Anthony Nelson, who's more of a rotational guy. Chris Braswell, who's a 2nd-round pick, but he's going to be a slow developer, I think, sort of maybe similar to what Diaby was last year, where by midseason he's picking up more and more snaps, but that's not going to happen overnight. So, and also say what you will about Devin White, he was the Bucs' best blitzing linebacker, and now he's not there anymore. And we know how much Todd Bowles likes to blitz, so that's going to be an even more of another element of the blitz that's not going to be there. So I am a little bit more concerned about this pass rush, and I just I think you're hoping that these guys develop, and unfortunately, right now that's an unknown. So with what we know right now, it is I think a serious cause for concern.
Well, the homer and says that Yaya Diaby is going to come out and he's going to get at least 7 sacks, right? But again, Evan, just like you said, we're talking about, I don't want to say unreal expectations because he had an unreal rookie season for a 3rd-round pick who missed a lot of the action that he did. But for him to go, if he were to go out this year and get 6.5, 7 sacks, not lead the team, not have as many sacks as he did last year, but have another productive season, right? He helps the team out. If he's not the team leader in sacks, then you look around and you question who could possibly get that done. And I'm not saying that there's guys who can't, but I don't know, Evan, just like you said, Anthony Nelson and JTS in particular were kind of the 2 guys I was talking about when I said we know what we have in those guys. And unfortunately, I don't think the Bucs' long-term plans at the outside linebacker position involve JTS after this year. Maybe Anthony Nelson, because he did sign for multiple seasons, but he's a depth guy. He's a rotational guy. He's not going to get you more than 5 sacks a year. I think if he does, that's a huge year for him.
I have to jump in here. I have to, by a show of hands, how many people expected Yaya Diaby to have the career, the season that he had last year? Just when he was drafted and said, oh, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers draft Yaya Diaby. How many people at that point going into the season last year thought that he would have the career, the season that he had?
I think the people who say that they did,
they're lying.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like there's a lot of overly positive people who love to say, yeah, I've cheered for this team every day. I believed in this guy since day one. And as a fan, maybe part of that's true, but I did not hear anyone at all set big expectations for Yaya Diaby. Sure as hell, nobody picked him to lead the team in sacks.
I think just watching him in the offseason and listening to interviews and hearing his confidence and just he knew what he was capable of doing. And I'm going to be honest, he was not on my bingo card at all. Not even close. But having him on the field, as soon as we saw Yaya Diaby come on the field, you kind of got excited. I would say midway through the season, midway towards the back end of the season, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong here, but when you saw him come on the field, you were like, oh, something might happen here when you're watching him. But just from that, going into this season, you've had a full season under your belt. You figured out the speed of the offenses you faced, and you're like, man, I think that I can improve. There were some things that rookies make mistakes on, but I feel like these are things that they can also, kind of fix. So at the end of the day, I felt like, when I'm looking at this season, I'm like, oh, okay, we got Yaya Diaby in here. I'm comfortable with that. If he regresses, it won't be a whole lot, but I feel like he did enough to put himself in that position, and we should be comfortable with him. So again, you're right. There could be that sophomore jinx. You could have that a little bit of regression, but at the end of the day, you're like, okay, we got to focus on there are other things that we need to be concerned about. And I did want to talk about Devin White, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I felt like Devin White was inconsistent after the Super Bowl up until now. I can't say that Devin White has had 100% consistent season in his position. I remember when then Lavonte David went down with injury, and you had Devin White. Devin White was not the Devin White of 2020. Devin White was not consistent with Lavonte David out, not having Lavonte David on the other side of the field. So to me, I understand your concerns, but when you have players that come in and they're not as physically talented, but they're able to do their job, I think that's kind of what you need in that linebacker position. And you guys tell me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like a KJ Britt, who cerebrally, he can go out there, okay, I know what I need to do, and he's not trying to get on ESPN. He's not trying to go rogue and make a play that he really doesn't need to. But when you look at this linebacker core, I think you have some guys that mentally, they know what they need to do, but they may not be as physically talented going downhill, chasing a quarterback as Devin White. But I feel like if you have a consistently a linebacker that consistently does what he's supposed to do, it's a little bit more valuable than a guy that makes splash plays. But tell me if I'm wrong here.
No, you're not. But I also think a big part of that is trusting in Todd Bowles and his ability to put these guys in the best position to go out there and help their team. You've heard, a ton of players talk about Bills and his ability to put these guys in a position to win. And I think he can do that. He can put on the game tape of a guy like KJ Britt and say, all right, we sent him after the quarterback 10 times. He only got there twice. Maybe we start sending someone else after the quarterback. Maybe we can send him for a different kind of role as a linebacker in this defense. I think his ability to basically watch what guys are good at, watch what they're not good at, and then adjust accordingly is something that we've always given him credit for. But yeah, you talk about some of these players maybe not having the best intangibles, maybe not even having the best expectations, but what they're able to do in a Todd Bowles defense, I think goes a long way in your point as to getting the most out of these guys. KJ Britt might not be as good of a pass rusher as Devin White was, but if you've got 4 down linemen, or you've got a Yaya Diaby who steps up and kind of blossoms here in year 2, he continues his development, he can pick up the slack a little bit. You can get more pressure from 4 down linemen. I think, Todd Bowles is very good at learning what his players are good at and then ultimately adjusting them to help them get the most out of themselves. Jordan Whitehead being a great recent example. He got a big money contract from playing in a Todd Bowles system, went to New York, had a couple of good years in New York, but definitely wasn't the same kind of player, wasn't as dangerous in the same ways that he is dangerous in Tampa Bay. And
also, I think that's another thing you mentioned, Jordan Whitehead. That's something where they may have to be a little bit more creative when it comes to blitzing Antoine Winfield Jr., which we know he can do, or blitzing Jordan Whitehead, which we know he can do. So to help offset that replacement, right, of that blitzing aspect of things, I do think that's something that they might have to sort of work into the defense, in some shape or form. But yeah, it's definitely, I don't think the Buccaneers are going to be missing Devin White. But I do think it's fair to acknowledge that, we're having concerns about the pass rush and their best blitzing linebacker is no longer there. Can Lavonte David do it? Yes. But Devin White, when Devin White was on and he was going, he was explosive, right? It was quick. And it's weird when you look at, I don't want to talk too much more about somebody who's not even on the football team, but you look at Devin White's career and it actually goes the wrong way. Like, he starts his career actually better than he finishes it in Tampa. 2019, 2020 wasn't like outstanding, but he was decent. And then sort of 2021 was okay. 2022 was and then you're like, okay, all right. So they pick up his 50-year option. They don't give him the extension. He requests the trade, doesn't get the trade because he didn't get the contract. All right, 2023. All right, it's time for Devin White to go out and prove that so the Buccaneers have no choice, right? The Buccaneers have no choice but to say, all right, here's the money, right? We have to, you had such a good year. We cannot lose you. Here's the money. And instead he gets benched for KJ Britt, at the end of it. So sort of went like the wrong direction there from the start of his Buccaneer career to the end of it.
Yeah, it kind of reminds you of Keyshawn Johnson a little bit back in, when the Super Bowl days where he came in and he was the guy, but at the end of the day, he ended up being sent home and we don't need you. We're going to go without you kind of thing. But, just kind of going back to that, there just wasn't that level of consistency. You saw highs and lows. You saw too many highs and lows to where you could depend on him. And I think with Lavonte David going out and him being the main guy, and I can't remember what season that was. If it was it 21? I think it was 21.
Yeah, well, actually, Lavonte went down and Devin White was the guy, and then there was a little bit last year where both guys were down. Yeah. And that's when KJ Britt kind of stepped up. So,
but he never learned from that, and this is just an observation for me. He never learned from that and said, you know what, I need to do this to get here. It was never that. It was, hey, I'm a max contract linebacker. You got to pay me what I'm worth, regardless. And there were times where this guy would go totally rogue, and he would leave like the middle of the field wide open, and it's just like, what are you doing? Do your job. That's all you have to do. Just consistently do your job. And again, and this is not a knock on him. It is what it is. But I just felt like he didn't consistently do his job. he would make splash plays. You would see it on the replays, but he wasn't like, oh yeah, he ever consistently doing his job. So
yeah, the inconsistencies on the field are one thing. There's been plenty of players in and out of Tampa Bay who have struggled with that, but I think his attitude throughout the entire thing is ultimately what did him in. And I don't want to speculate too much. Like Evan said, this guy's not even on the team anymore. He's not going to be healthy for the Bucs this year, and hopefully, the Bucs can make mincemeat of him and the Eagles when they meet later this season. But I think his attitude and multiple moments that you talked about where either Lavonte David goes down or you're lacking depth, there were a lot of moments for him in Tampa Bay that felt like they should have been learning moments, right? Like, this guy's going to step up into a role that he hasn't been in before. He's going to come out the other side a better player, a more refined player. He's going to do this, he's going to do that, and he's going to advance his career. And it never felt like that happened. Like Evan said, he was trending the wrong way, and his attitude throughout the entire thing, still believing he was a max contract linebacker in the NFL. I think it just goes to show the professionalism that we talked about at the start of the show from some of these longtime guys who have been here, done that, played at the top levels of the league. Mike Evans and Lavonte David have never been a ton of drama around contract time. I don't think Lavonte David is making Instagram posts and Twitter posts talking to fans about wanting to play in Philly a year before it happens. Like, the writing was on the wall there, whether it's a lack of self-awareness, whether it's immaturity. Again, I'm not going to speculate, but the fact of the matter is the Bucs decided they had seen enough, made a business decision, and moved on. So wish him the best. I think at that point, he was a player that the only thing that could have got his career back on the right track was a change of scenery. So for his sake, I hope he 100%. Plays well. I just hope he doesn't play well against the Bucs. That's all.
Hey, I do want to kind of jump over to the offensive side of the ball. This has been like the least talked about. You got Liam Cohen coming in, a new offensive coordinator. A lot of people are looking at it as an upgrade, as our previous offensive coordinator had zero experience calling plays. So, with Liam coming in, what are your thoughts on how this team is going to look with a Liam Cohen-led offense? How is this all going to look to you guys? And Evan, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? Because it's just like last year where Dave Canales comes in. We don't know exactly what that offense is going to look like, right? You get those answers eventually. But the good thing is that I do think they share similar characteristics in terms of scheme and sort of philosophy. Now, again, it could be completely different. We're going to get our answer here very shortly. But I am optimistic. Okay. I'm cautiously optimistic because of the relationship he has with Baker Mayfield. I know it's not like some long history relationship, but there is some sort of connection there. There is a history there. And I do like that. I like the use of motion. I like the background he comes from. I like that he is from, the Los Angeles Rams, and people look at, his offense at Kentucky. The one offense was really good. Last year's offense wasn't that good. You have to look at the talent, right? At Kentucky, that one year, he had Will Levis there. And then the last year, he didn't have Will Levis. So that's a big difference, right? Will Levis was a really good college quarterback, and that makes a big difference. So as far as, scheming-wise, it's tough for me to talk X's and O's right now, just because I don't know exactly what he's going to have planned, right? And in the preseason, he's not going to give any of that away. Right? He's not going to give away any tricks or anything. So I'm hoping he's got some tricks up his sleeve for Washington week 1, and he'll be able to roll them out on the red carpet. And hopefully, they result in good plays. But also another thing is, the players on offense, and we talk about this a lot. And in defending Byron Leftwich, actually, a lot of times while he was here, the players got to execute, though, at the same time. The scheme can be anything they want. The scheme can be good. They can be bad. Byron Leftwich's scheme or whatever and play calling sometimes was bailed out because the players were executing so well, because they were so good and so talented that didn't matter if the scheme was basic. Because look, man, it's Tom Brady at quarterback, and he's going to throw to Mike Evans because Mike Evans is really good and Tom Brady's really good. Like, that's what it was. You didn't need to scheme guys open or attack a defense in a certain way. And I do think it comes the other way, though, as well. Like, sometimes it can be drawn up as Liam Cohen can be a mastermind drawing up plays. but the players don't execute those plays. If a lineman misses a block, Mayfield misses a throw, Rachaad White drops a ball, Mike Evans drops a ball, Rachaad White fumbles, misses a blocking assignment. Those are the types of little execution errors that it's not going to matter what the play design is. It's not going to work. So I think that goes hand in hand. And again, we're going to get our answer on that very soon.
I also think that's just a friendly reminder at how unfair that Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense was back in 2020. I mean, Tom Brady's top 3 options that year, if he's not throwing the ball to Mike Evans, he's throwing it to either Chris Godwin, who is a 1,000+ yard receiver, or Antonio Brown at wide receiver 3, who was playing some really good football.
And we can't forget about Rob Gronkowski.
Oh, yeah. Holy hell. I mean, there are so many pieces of that Buccaneers offense. I know there's other wide receivers I'm missing out. Scotty Miller made a couple of big plays here and there. Those guys served a purpose. But, yeah, the execution is a big thing. But that offense was just simply overpowered. But when I hear about Liam Cohen, and I kind of hear about what this new offense is going to look like, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Baker Mayfield showed me enough last year that if he can play a little bit better this season, he can run this offense just fine. Like, I'm not worried about him getting the football to Mike Evans. Chris Godwin, I think, is going to have a really good year. I'm excited to see how much benefit he's going to have from moving back into playing in the slot. But this run game is what I want to talk about, because this run game is all that I hear about. Now, I know it's college football, but back in September, I sat down to watch my beloved Florida Gators play the Kentucky Wildcats. And I watched Ray Davis run the football 26 times for 280 yards and 3 touchdowns, averaging 10.8 yards a tote. Now, I know that a lot of that has to do with just how leaky the Gators' run defense was that particular afternoon. And those aren't the numbers I expect every single week from Rachaad White or Bucky Irving. But I am just praying that we get some semblance of a run game, because, Gene, I don't think you understand. We can talk a lot about the expectations that the Bucs have shattered, especially in that 2023 season. But even with Tom Brady going back to the tail end of 2021, that 2022 season, the Bucs have been horrifically bad at running the football. Like, I'm not even being dramatic. They have been one of the worst teams in the history of the NFL year after year after year. Just when I think it couldn't get worse, it gets worse statistically in the yards per carry category for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think just having a reliable run game, if Baker's not throwing the football well, let's not ask him to throw the football 35 times. Sometimes that happens with your quarterback. But if you got Bucky Irving who can take 15 carries, you got Rachaad White who can take 10 to 15 carries and a couple of targets out of the backfield. Bucky Irving very, very much able to do, the same thing. And then again, great point in the chat here. Interior O-line is way better. That should help the run game in Baker. I am expecting those things to just mesh beautifully. If this interior offensive line, if Graham Barton, Cody Mauch is able to develop, and Ben Bredesen, God bless his soul, at left guard, if those guys can play well and give us more run protection than we've had the last couple of years, if Bucky Irving and Rachaad White can stay healthy, Bucky Irving can prove to me that he's the type of running back I want to see in Tampa Bay, and Liam Cohen cannot call crack tosses to the left when we're trailing 28 points in a division game in the third quarter, I think we'll be okay. But I'm excited about the potential that this run game brings. That's the big thing that I'm watching with Liam Cohen. I trust in Baker Mayfield. I trust in Mike Evans. I trust in these pass catchers. They're going to get their due. But I really, really want to see Rachaad White. I want to see Bucky Irving have a strong rookie year. But I want to see Rachaad White kind of take that next step, running the football, because he's shown us a lot of promise these first couple of years. He's become a little bit of a fantasy football darling, but running the football, they just have to be better. And I think Cohen can definitely do that with the tools he has in front of him.
All right. And Evan, I know you got to go, man. I want to get your final thoughts before you roll out. Again, folks, if you're just joining us, I've got the Cannon Fire podcast on with me, both Rhett and Evan on with me, and I appreciate you guys. Great football minds. Great Bucs fans. Make sure, Evan, you're following Evan. He writes some really amazing articles. So, Evan, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, and I'll let you go ahead and roll out. And I guess Rhett will be stuck with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you can find all my podcast stuff, Campfire Podcast. Me and Rhett will start doing here soon. 3 podcasts a week. It's a game preview, game review, and then another show at some point during the week. We also are doing more short form videos as well throughout the week on updates or opinions and stuff like that.
You guys will have to teach me that stuff.
Check that out on Cannonfire Podcast on YouTube. You can also find us anywhere you can find a podcast. You can listen to that. You can check out my written work at bucsnation.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at EvanNFL. So I want to thank you a lot, Gene, for inviting me on. It was a really fun time.
It's my pleasure, man. Glad to have you on. Sorry you got to go. Rhett, I did want to respond to what you were talking about. And the one thing that stuck out to me is that Rachaad White was 10 yards off of a 1,000-yard season. We haven't had an 1,000-yard rusher since the muscle hamster.
Yeah.
Doug Martin. The last time.
Ronald Jones got dangerously close one year. I think he was less.
Yeah, he got dangerously close, but he didn't. I really felt like the offensive coordinator hindered Rachaad White from getting that 1,000-yard season just by some of the play calls. Situational football was not actually addressed at certain times, in my opinion. Just wasted. And again, I'm not an offensive coordinator, but there were opportunities where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had an opportunity to run the ball, and they passed the ball. It was obvious what they were going to do, and it just kind of affected the running game in toward just the trend of the running game throughout the rest of the game. But again, that's just an observation. I feel like he should have gone well over 1,000 yards. There were a couple of penalties that really hurt him that they had to call back. But theoretically, he should have gone over 1,000 yards. He had over 1,500 yards of all-purpose yards. So I'm happy with him. I feel like he's going to improve, and I really believe that with Liam Cohen, he's going to really thrive in this Liam Cohen offense. And having a little bit of help, I think they'll be able to control the clock. There will be some games that I believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will win. They would not have won last year having that consistent running game. When you're wasting your time handing the ball off to Keyshawn Vaughn when you should have been giving the ball to other players that are a little bit more eligible to run the ball or available. I think that makes a big difference. So to me, I feel like they're in a really good place. I love the backup. I love the backup running backs. I really feel like if everybody can stay healthy, this running back room is going to help the Buccaneers to win some games that they probably would not have won last year.
Yeah, Rachaad White's a good player. I think he's a capable back. I'm a fan of the development that we have seen. It seems like year after year, at least his first couple of years in Tampa Bay, he's bringing more to the table. Now, situational play calling, as you had brought up, I mean, let's look at what the guy's been dealing with. He's going on his 3rd year in the NFL, and he's going on his 3rd offensive coordinator. I don't think we were ever talking a lot about how creative Byron Leftwich got with the run game. I think at times we were complaining and kind of bashing our heads in at the lack of creativity and what we thought would be more in a Dave Canales offense. And now a lot of people are kind of grateful that we ended up with Liam Cohen, because I think when you compare the 3 of them, he's got the most potential to turn this run game into something meaningful. And also getting him a consistent, I don't want to say backup, but, a partner back there.
Relief.
A running back by committee. I know Rachaad White is a good enough player to take this running back one job and hang on to it all year. But I also think Bucky Irving is just as good to carve out a role for himself this year. We talked with Trevor Sikkema about it a couple of months ago, and he expects a running back by committee, and I do too. As much as the Bucs love Rachaad White, I just think there's going to be a couple of games where he doesn't have to do it all. But the other point that you brought up, having a viable run game and the long-term effects that it has on an offense, it's not just about scoring more rushing touchdowns. It's not just about closing out more. Well, it kind of is. It's not just about breaking off the big run. It's about controlling the game. It's about controlling the clock. If you're in a situation where you're up by 3 points and you got to burn 7 minutes, if you've got a running back who cannot pick up 4 yards when he needs to, well, all of a sudden you're, back behind the markers on 3rd and long, and you've got to throw the football. You potentially throw an interception, potentially throw an incompletion. Regardless, it's not a high percentage look when you're trying to win the game, put a team on ice. I think when you've got a running back between Bucky Irving and Rachaad White who can confidently get you 3 or 4 yards in crunch time like that, 1st and 10 turns into 2nd and 6, turns into 3rd and 2. Much more manageable than a 3rd and 12. And, you got to potentially look to Baker Mayfield to not turn the ball over and save the game. Because then if Baker throws a pick, it's his fault. But
Right.
we're not talking about the lack of clock control and the fact that he didn't have anything else he could rely on. So there's so many different factors that a fluent run game can bring to the table. But I think that's one that not a lot of people are talking about enough. It's the ability to kind of dictate the pace of the game.
Yeah, 100%. And being able to catch the ball, speed and space is huge in the NFL. Running backs are not just supposed to hit the hole. Running backs are supposed to be able to run certain routes, catch the ball, put themselves in a position to move the sticks. That's another factor that we have right here, and we haven't had that for a while. I remember Ronald Jones. I love Ronald Jones. I thought he was a great runner, but it was painful to watch him catch the ball.
Right.
You look at Rachaad White. Rachaad White has a natural pass catching motion and stride. You love that. What I've seen from Bucky Irving, going back and watching him in college, watching some of him in preseason. Here's a guy that has that same natural catch the ball. I'm going to hit the hole. This is what I'm going to do. Speed and space is huge. And he's a bruiser. So, safeties are going to, they're going to think twice about running up on him. And, if he can outrun these linebackers, that kind of makes him a problem for defenses. So, again, that's one of the things that we need to see that. And if you have a potent running game, I don't want to hear about Atlanta. I don't want to hear about New Orleans or Carolina. If you've got a potent running game, if you've got a potent pass catching running back, and you've got multiple pass catching running backs that can extend plays, I mean, you set yourself up for success. You've opened up your playbook to where you can really deal with your tight ends. You can deal with your wide receivers as well. And so that just makes your offense that much more lethal, being able to do all that.
Yeah, I'm curious to see Bucky Irving kind of get kickstarted in this offense, catching the football. We know that he can hit the hole at 100 miles per hour. I think that is much needed. As much as I do like Rachaad White, you talked about his features as a receiver. Sometimes he plays a little too much like a receiver back there.
Exactly.
He's a taller back. He's a different style of running back. He's a little more patient hitting the hole, but sometimes he runs upright. I think the ability to not only bring in Bucky Irving and his playmaking ability that we talked about, but the ability to create what is hopefully going to be a dynamic 1-2 punch. You got two different styles of running backs. Like, they can both do the same things. They're both, I don't want to say interchangeable. They both can do the same things. They both have a similar skill set. Bucky can catch the ball. He can run the ball well. Rachaad White can catch the ball. He can run the ball well if he has a blocking offensive line. So that's not really what it's about. But I think just having that rotational backfield, the ability to keep your guys fresh, and depending on what the situation calls for, again, 3rd and 2, are you going to be more comfortable sending Bucky Irving 100 miles an hour at the A-gap? Or are you going to be more comfortable giving it to Rachaad White in that situation? I think the Bucs hopefully will have a couple of options when they find themselves in that situation later this year. Yeah, Bucky also blocking, picking up the blitz as well, as Bud said in the chat.
Yeah, we saw that a few times in the preseasons where he was able to pick up some blitzes, and that made me a lot more comfortable with him as well. I think the biggest thing to me is keeping the defense on their heels. You bring in Rachaad White, you know what you're going to get with Rachaad White. If you switch him out and you bring in Bucky Irving, your defense, hey, you got to bring in a different package, because Bucky Irving's a little bit more of a bruiser than Rachaad White is. Rachaad White's a little bit more finesse. Bucky Irving's a little bit more downhill. I'm going to punch you in the mouth. Let's see what you got. And so I'm good with that. So I like what the Bucs have. It's just a matter of them going out and proving it on the field.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Rhett, thank you so much, man. It's been over an hour, and I really appreciate you guys coming on. Can't wait to be on your show again. I always have a great time. Shout out to the Buccaneers. I don't know if you were able to simulcast your show or not. I did put that option out there if you wanted to put the link up and put it on your show. But again, thank you so much for coming on. And really, this was a lot of fun to me.
Yeah, it's always a lot of fun, Gene. I enjoy our conversations, my friend. Don't tell anyone else, but you're one of my favorite guests that we have, just because you kind of have the same opinion I do. Like, you're not afraid to take a critical look at the team, but
oh no, you can't.
You speak from a place of passion, and I think that's important. So I always appreciate our conversations, Gene. I think we make good conversation.
Absolutely. And just what you guys are doing, and it's where you started and where you guys are right now is just incredible. And here we are, we're in another season. And Bucs fans, we are spoiled. I'm officially going to say it. You've got Mike Evans, you've got Chris Godwin, you've got Baker Mayfield, which I'm happy, I'm confident enough to say Baker Mayfield, Vita Vea, what we've seen from Kalijah Cansey. I mean, Antoine Winfield Jr. All these different players that you're seeing that they've built foundations. Tristan Wirfs, it's just crazy. We had a Miami Dolphins content creator on, and she was upset that the Bucs grabbed Graham Barton, and she wanted him over Chop Robinson. And she's like, this is a guy this is what the Miami Dolphins needed. So people outside of the Buccaneers organization recognize that the moves that the Bucs have made in the offseason will be beneficial. And there are a lot of players that have become free agents. We saw this with Mike Evans, the Mike Evans sweepstakes. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but the Mike Evans sweepstakes, I can promise you 31 teams in the NFL would be happy to have Mike Evans on their team. Chris Godwin will be the next one, where I can promise you 31 teams out of everybody in the NFL would love to have him. Okay. So where we are right now, I love it. I really feel like, this is a organization that has put themselves in such a good position that your ownership said, hey, $3, $4, $5 billion, man, fuck you. I'm keeping my team here. This is my team. I don't want to trade them. I don't want to get rid of them. I'm happy with what I have. This is what they've built. And Malcolm Glazier, Joel Glazier, just all of them, all the Glazier family, going back to, from the father to where they are right now, what they've built, and the fact that they haven't tried to beat Jerry Jones and everything. And, I need to put my opinion in here. Right. It speaks volumes about this organization from top to bottom. And I'm proud to be a Bucs fan because of what we have and what this organization has built.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Glazers have kind of carved out a role for themselves in the fact that they trust their front office and they trust their organization to get it done. And, Tom Brady coming to Tampa Bay in 2020 was obviously huge. A lot of these guys getting put in the limelight for the first time in their career. A lot of them getting credit for the first time in a very long time. But even after the departure of Tom Brady, the Bucs have remained a team that people talk about. And as you said, other teams around the NFL look at what they're doing and they're like, damn, those guys are doing a good job. They're building something special. And all of that is because of the work Jason Licht has done. So Tom Brady comes in 2020. They build a Super Bowl championship team. They win the ultimate prize in his first season here. Tom Brady leaves. A lot of people expect the Bucs to go back to the den of despair. They don't. They take a flyer on Baker Mayfield. They continue to build this roster. They keep their guys, right? That's the biggest thing. And hopefully they can continue to build a winner. But all of that is because of the work that Jason Licht has done. And a lot of these players that we talk about as well, it is exciting that they get the coverage that they get now in 2024, because in 2016, 2017, I don't know very many people in league circles who would be talking about a Jordan Whitehead, who would be talking about a Luke.
Even Lavonte David.
Yeah, Lavonte David. I know he's been around long enough now, but finally gets his flowers. But even the up-and-coming players, the guys that we can get excited about, in 2016, nobody was talking about a Vita Vea. So I do think that the standard that has been built, the standard that has been set by Jason Licht, the Bucs front office, Bruce Arians when he came in 2019, and now the players who have been here, been through that regime, know what to expect. It is hopefully going to continue to be a winning culture. And I think it's just going to be an exciting year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We got just enough change on the horizon for it to be exciting, but I absolutely think this is a team that can build off of what they put together last year, which is something that defied a lot of expectations. So I'm very, very excited to see what these guys can do. Ton of talent on this Bucs team. I can't wait to watch them.
Oh, yeah, me too, my friend. Hey, Rhett, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. What new projects are you working on? And, when can we expect the next Cannon Fire podcast to come out?
It is the Cannon Fire podcast, brother. That's really all it is this time of year. We are getting ready to kick things back into full time. We partnered up with the Autograph app this season, which I am very excited about. So if people want to check that out, you can go download the Autograph app for free. Use promo code BUCS, BUCS. You can sign up. And it is really cool. If you're looking for like an all-in-one news app, just a good place to read all of your Buccaneer news, or really any team and any sport for that matter. It's a great community of content creators. There's more and more people getting on there every single week. You can find our content, video and audio over there on the Autograph app. Very excited. But yeah, promo code BUCS. That's it. Cannon Fire
Podcast. I'm joined.
YouTube and the podcast at Cannon Fire Podcast. And then social media on Twitter at Rhettakus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. Let's talk about the Bucs, baby.
All right. Hey, again, Cannon Fire Podcast, thank you guys for coming on. This is going to be an exciting season. I am 100% looking forward to it. Folks, it's a great time to be a Bucs fan. Always, when you get a chance, take a step back and look at this team as a whole, what we have, and players that we didn't have years ago, or even an organization or culture. I mentioned the word culture umpteen times tonight, but just look at that and look where we are. I mean, we're affecting other teams within the NFL. When Tom Brady came in and won a Super Bowl, what did the New York Jets do? They went all out and got Aaron Rodgers. They bring Aaron Rodgers in. It's not the same thing, of course. They're not going to win a Super Bowl. But people thought, oh, you know what? The Bucs did this with Tom Brady. We can do this with Aaron Rodgers. But I can guarantee you, hot take of the year, Aaron Rodgers is not winning a Super Bowl in New York. You can take that to the bank. You can cash it in. Hey, you know what? You could put it as collateral on your house. I can promise you that much, that Aaron Rodgers is not winning a Super Bowl as a New York Jet.
I think 8 years ago, before you had a guy named Pat Mahomes terrorizing the AFC, it could have been a little more possible than it is today. But I do agree with you in that sense. Man, Gene, there is just so much going on in the NFL, so many different storylines. And as you had talked about, the Bucs kind of setting the template with I guess we'll call it the TB12 blueprint. Look at what the Rams did the following season. The team that took the Bucs out of the postseason in 2021, the eventual Super Bowl 56 champions. They mortgage their future, go out and get a Matt Stafford. You miss out on like 7 straight years of a first-round pick, but they got a championship out of it. So I guess at the end of the day, the job was done. Yeah,
there you go. So, man, trust me, folks, you will see Buc What Ya Heard in the Cannon Fire Podcast teaming up again. I do want to shout out to the Buccaneers and all the Buccaneer fans and listeners, BB King and everybody else that's listening in. And, I appreciate you guys. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much. Christopher Cole, Bud Cannibalist, guys that are continuously listening to us. Richard, and it's crazy. LC Leprechaun. Your beer is in the beer bracket still. You're still alive. We've got the Fatal 4-Way going on. So on Monday with the Buccaneers, we are going to be announcing the official 2024 beer for the Buccaneers and the Tampa and the Buc What Ya Heard podcast. This is going to be official beer. This is what we're going to be drinking throughout the season. So look for that. And you know what? We're going to go ahead and get out of here. I'm going to let you guys get back to your day. I'm sure you're tired of hearing me rambling, but here we are. So, guys, thank you so much, everybody. And everybody have a great evening.